Moon Knight just gave us the best season finale in the MCU of all time. And also, we told you so.
So what, this is what reality looks like?
Hey guys, it's Law with CinemaBlend, joined by my managing editor, Sean O'Connell. And today, we're talking about the Moon Knight season finale, which was just perfection. Sean, what did you think?
I was blown away. It really, to me, is one of the most satisfying origin stories that we've seen in the MCU in a really long time. And it reminded me how complicated this character is, that you needed this much time to basically set up who he is. And Law, as you can see, the way that you're dressed, we finally got both Moon Knight and Mr. Knight in action. It delivered everything we were hoping to get. So we're going to break down not just the finale, but the entire season, which is something that we do here on CinemaBlend. So we want to make sure that you hit subscribe, turn on your notifications, and every time we drop a new video, you guys will be the first ones to know about it.
As you wish.
Now, we talked about this before, throughout our series, and we finally have confirmation. And I just have to say, bienvenidos, Jake Lockley. Welcome to the MCU.
Yeah, it's so good to see him. Just confirmation of things we've been teasing up to this point, that there was a third person inside there, first hiding in the sarcophagus, and also decimating villains whenever Steven realized that he thought it was Mark. So we realize at the very end it's Jake. And, one of the things we've been talking about, Law, is that in the Moon Knight comics, the Mark Spector character is somebody who's wealthy, who's able to sort of fund the expeditions. He has a Moon Knight copter, and of course all the things that come with it. In those closing scenes where we see Jake in a limousine, it almost feels like that's going to be the person who can bankroll everything, right? Like he seems to be the wealthy, most confident version of this character, and that's a big switch from the way that it is in the comics.
Yeah, it makes you wonder how much limousine drivers are getting paid in the MCU. But his personalized license plate ripped straight from the comic books. It made me geek out. And Jake Lockley being kind of the enforcer of the bunch and then calling back to the blackouts that we saw throughout the series, especially in the pilot. It was just kind of like a poetic parallel for me in the season finale to see that. In introducing yet another alter to the bunch.
And it's something so simple, but the hat that he's wearing is such a callback to the comics. But because up to that point, what we were discussing before recording this video is that Oscar Isaac has really perfected how seamlessly to transition between the alters, that we know exactly who he is, the way he's delivering his lines. To have him take on yet a third personality and to have Jake stand out, but to slap that cap on. Like, it was so goofy in the comics whenever he was like, no, I'm Jake now. And he would put on the taxi cab outfit.
Mustache would grow.
Go downtown. Yeah, all of a sudden he was different. So this is a much better way for them to visually convey Jake. And it makes me believe, and I think we're going to talk about this later, that, since they just introduced him, there's so many questions that now pop up about, like, where does he take them whenever he's in control? And so there's a lot of things about Jake that I really want to know.
I gotta say, Khonshu looked great in that suit. Ripped straight from the Lemire comics. I've been waiting to see that outfit, and the Jake reveal was the perfect place to do it. But
so cool.
Let's talk about the Moon Knight action, because as you all know, we haven't gotten a whole lot of Moon Knight superhero action throughout the series, and this episode definitely delivered.
I'm really jazzed about showing you these new skill sets we have.
Hey, show me what you got.
Yeah?
Now, Sean, I know that you've scoured the internet and saw the tweets, but people have been upset that there's not enough, like, superhero action. But, about 20 minutes into this episode, we got a whole lot of it. What did you think finally seeing Moon Knight in what I would call his most powerful form?
Well, like you said, finally. And I don't want to knock the show for not featuring Moon Knight as much as it did, because there was so much that had to be explained about Mark and Steven. Like, he's a very complicated character, and all of that stuff was explored so well in the series. I've seen some people already reacting saying maybe this could have just been a movie, but I think that would have shortchanged a lot of the character development that was essential to us understanding who he is. But I couldn't disagree with the tweets that were like, hey, where's Moon Knight in this Moon Knight show? Because up to that point, really, we've only seen him like at the very end of the first episode. We saw him fight, I think, in episode 2. And then he was really absent for long periods of time. If he's going to be absent and you're going to give me Oscar Isaac, it's a fair trade-off, right? And it's a weird situation where I don't want Oscar to be hidden beneath the suit. You know, Moon Knight's one of those characters where it's a mask and a complete full-on costume, even when he's Mr. Knight. But what we saw in this action, Law, is that when Mr. Knight, the Steven character, took over and has embraced his ability and his physicality and his being able to fight, I thought Oscar was still letting his personality shine through. Like it was reflective in the way that he was fighting, and I thought it differentiated every time it switched over to Moon Knight. And now, you know, we didn't quite get to see it, but I want to know what Jake's going to look like when he's transitioned into hero form. So
that's
more
the
questions,
question, right?
Yeah, but
yeah.
Here's the thing too. I'm sorry, but before I just want to ask you this because maybe you know. I don't quite know 100% what Moon Knight's full powers are. Like, there was the moment when Harrow was trying to, like, eliminate him and the way that he was fending him off. Like, I have a lot of questions about what Moon Knight's physical powers are beyond I can kick the crap out of a lot of people.
It's so weird, right? Because, like, we've talked about it before, is that there's not really a definitive Moon Knight origin story. And it varies for him just being, like, Olympic level strength and fighting to supernatural abilities.
Right.
But I'm hoping if we do get a season 2, we can expand kind of like how his powers are affected by maybe the phases of the moon. Because in the end credit sequences, there were different phases of the moon, and last night's was a full moon finally, which had to, like, that just means full power to me, which maybe also explains why Khonshu was a kaiju at the end, but I don't want to get too deep into that right now.
No, that was an awesome visual way when Moon Knight and Harrow were fighting to show Amit and Khonshu fighting behind them. You know, that sort of visualization of the two powers of the gods. And then you mentioned the full moon too. That shot of Moon Knight and Harrow running towards each other with the moon behind them, fantastic. The visualization in this series has been so excellent. And you know, on a technical level, I just think this has been so impressive.
Yeah, and just to circle back to kind of the switching of Moon Knight and Mr. Knight, one, I'm disappointed that at no point Steven went, "That's Mr. Knight to you," which would have been really great.
Very proper.
But that said, is the way that they fight, like you said, it's so distinctly different. You have to give props to Oscar Isaac for not only separating these alters with, you know, well, now Spanish and the British accent, and then Mark as his standard, but also in the fighting style, Moon Knight is brutal, acrobatic. Mr. Knight seems a little cleaner and strategic, but also naive. There's a moment where he like dusts himself off, and then it causes him to get his leg grabbed and smashed into a wall. I love those little details because it's like it's still not a perfect kind of symbiotic relationship, right? They're still figuring it out. And I really loved it. But let's move on to a different Egyptian avatar, because we have just been introduced to the Scarlet Scarab in the MCU.
¿En superhero mostraya?
First, I need to offer my apologies because I think this whole analysis series I've been super sketched out by Layla, thinking she's gonna betray me. But nah, she's amazing. And now she's an Egyptian superhero. Let's talk about how big of a moment this is for not only Egyptian fans, but also comic fans. Like, we're getting into the nitty gritty of characters, and it's kind of interesting that I'm seeing a Scarlet Scarab version live action. Sean, how did you feel about that big moment for Layla?
It was a wonderful reveal of the way that it was handled. Her costume was incredible. I just thought it looked really fantastic. The way that she took on, become the avatar of Taweret, and then automatically knowing essentially how to use those wings. There was a shot at one point when someone has a machine gun and is just blasting right at her wings, and she's using them as a shield. Yeah. But the moment when the little girl, you know, says, "Are you an Egyptian superhero?" and she's just like, "Yes," and just dives right back into action. It felt like a really important moment for representation. Like I loved seeing it, and I'm so glad that Layla, you know, a couple of years ago, the Layla character would have been, you know, a damsel in distress type thing. And yeah. It's so comforting to find out that we're so far beyond that now at this point in the MCU, and that they have the confidence in these characters that maybe no one's heard about before, but we're going to introduce you to them, and we're going to show you what's important about them and throw them into the fray. You know, having her fight alongside Moon Knight at those crucial moments was really, really great. And again, I just can't give enough props to the costume design. It looked fantastic.
Yeah, and speaking to the costume, I know for my personal scouring of the internet, there has been confusion like, why is it wings and not like a hippo outfit? I think that has to do with the fact that Towerette was connected to her father when she helped him pass over the sands, right? So there was some kind of personal connection when she says, I have an idea for the costume. It's playing directly into that line, that family line. And just to note the comics really quick, Scarlet Scarab, Abdul Faouli, he was from a long line of defenders. Like, he was an Egyptian superhero in the comics. So this feels like an amalgamation of obviously Marlene from the comics, the love interest that we're used to seeing, plus that Scarlet Scarab character, and making it into Layla is just like a perfect fit. And I was really worried we were gonna get like a female Moon Knight, akin to like, female Venom and Venom when Michelle,
Sure.
I didn't necessarily want that because I feel like that would have caused a fan fire. But giving her own identity and her own costume and all these great moments to shine, I was just icing on the cake. I love to see it.
Also, in the middle of that interaction is closure for her about her father. Like, just the simple line of, when I brought him over to the wheat fields, or however it was worded, lets her know that yes, he's gone, but he's moved on to a happier place. And even that, I hope, brings her an emotional landing to the journey that she's been on over the course of the entire series.
And that said, it was a temporary Avatar situation, but an interaction like that, the one that she had with the girl on the street, I think we'll be seeing Layla in Avatar form again, and I really, really do hope so. But all of these things are just speculation because we don't know if we're getting another season, or do we?
I like the sound of that.
Now, before this episode premiered, there was a tweet that went out from Marvel that called this a series finale. However, it was quickly deleted and turned into a season finale, which makes us wonder, are we getting more Moon Knight in the future? With that post-credits scene and that tweet, kind of seems like that's the case, but let's talk about the likelihood of that happening, Sean.
Yeah, so with Loki, at least they boldly claimed, Loki will return in season 2.
Yeah.
And I would have loved to have seen that bit of confirmation for Moon Knight. But the problem with the MCU right now is just that we don't know. First off, they have a lot of titles that are out there. But on the TV side, we're not 100% sure where they're going beyond what's already been announced. We know that there are things like Armor Wars and Ironheart. There's the Secret Wars that's going to be taking place. We've heard promises of shows for like Echo, the character that we met in Hawkeye. So where is Moon Knight going to fit? And we're almost at the point now in the MCU, Lon, I don't know how you feel about this, where characters can crisscross both in movies and on television. Like in the She-Hulk series that's coming, we expect to see Mark Ruffalo's Bruce Banner. And, there's talk about in the Echo show that Daredevil might show up in that because he's been introduced in Spider-Man No Way Home. And then in Doctor Strange, you see Wanda come across, who had just had her entire story sort of play out in WandaVision. So the line that blurs the TV and the movie projects is gone, essentially. And I bet it's just Feige trying to figure out, okay, where are we going to use Moon Knight next? Like, will it be inside of someone else's Marvel properties? I've heard some people say that Blade would be a really great place for them to factor Moon Knight in, but we know nothing about that project. Or could he become part of another TV series that develops? So I feel like now that they've used an entire season to establish the origin of this character, he's free to go wherever he wants, and maybe that's just where they're hedging their bets.
Yeah, it's interesting because on one hand, they did an excellent job in making a self-contained kind of project in the MCU. Generally, you're looking for those connections, and we only got like a couple, if anything, this time. But you're absolutely right. Now that he's established, people are just gonna want to see Oscar Isaac show up again in this realm, right? And I'm for one, I'm very excited to see where we go, because I think the Jake Lockley character is going to be a really enticing thing to bring fans back into the fold. But you're right, Doctor Strange deals with a lot of dark stuff. We saw the Black Knight kind of like origin stories in Eternals, and Blade is teased. There seems to be a pathway in the MCU which is going to get maybe supernatural and a little weird and a little spooky, and Moon Knight would fit perfectly in that. But he also would be great as like a street level kind of hero, if he shows up in the Echo show. I wouldn't be surprised. Not I'm not making any claims, but it is interesting to me that initially the writer just revealed recently that Echo was written as like a love interest to Moon Knight initially, and they scrapped that idea. And I'm just like, oh, thank God, because I love what they did with Layla and kind of adapting the Marlene storyline. But yeah, there's a lot of potential here, I feel like.
Yeah, in Kevin we trust.
In Kevin we trust.
Yeah, I'll wait to see what he says.
Now run!
Guys, it is an excellent time to be a nerd. What a time to be alive. And, you know, there's a lot of content coming our way. We got Obi-Wan and other Marvel projects. Anything you're excited for, Sean?
Well, we're going to be breaking down Doctor Strange once it finally hits theaters. We're going to have spoiler reviews and non-spoiler reviews. Like you said, Miss Marvel's coming. Obi-Wan around the corner. We'll be into Thor, Love and Thunder. All your Marvel needs are going to be met here at CinemaBlend. So make sure you hit subscribe and turn on your notifications. And we'll see you right back here for our next video.
Laters, Gators.